Hello, and welcome to Fun Facts with Dean. My name is Dean. Well, what exactly did you expect? Now, in this third episode in my video series, never thought I'd be saying that, in my third episode of this video series, we will be discussing something I like to call the criminality of fame. Now, you probably have no idea what I'm talking about, so let me ask you a question. How many famous actors do you know have done illegal things? The answer is all of them, or at least the majority of them. True? How many actors have died of overdoses? A lot. How many actors have gotten in trouble with the law? A lot. Charlie Sheen. What has Charlie Sheen not done? Nothing. So, everything. Well, he's done everything. He hasn't done nothing. Ah, grammar. What a fun thing. Anyway, the point being that Hollywood seems to have a way of not criminalizing celebrities, but celebrating it. In some cases, that is power for these stars' career. The bad boy image. Now, where did all of this start? Well, the answer goes back a long way. And I'm not saying this is the only beginning, I'm saying this is the most interesting example I could find. If you can find your own more interesting example, then do a better show than I can. Oh wait, you can't. Anyway. Now, the Mexican government in the 1900s, well, in the 1800s, was, let's put it abruptly, not good. It was controlled for a long time by a dictator or caudillo named Porfirio Diaz, or depending on which accent you use. None of those were correct. Now, he eventually stepped down from government and had a nice little retirement despite being a dictator for roughly 30 years. And then a series of other dictators came into power. Only these dictators were called presidents. Remember that when we get to Obama. I'm kidding, he's not a dictator. He was elected. Anyway. So, where was I? Yes, I was a Porfirio Diaz stepping out, and a coalition of different people eventually came to become various presidents, all of whom were more or less opposed by the United States for a while. Eventually, a man named, I'm blanking on the name, Corazeo, I believe, I could be wrong, became president. And then the Mexican peasants rebelled because, well, he was a really bad person in charge. Dictator, president, king, emperor, what have you. Sheik, chieftain, sultan, all synonyms, except they don't mean the same thing, so they're not really synonyms, but they're also not antonyms. Anyway, the peasants revolted. The peasant revolt was led by Emilio Zapata, whose name I am probably also butchering, and Francisco Pancho Villa. You may have seen some fast food chains named after him. Yeah, they're Pancho. No. Yeah, I've seen restaurants named after him. Now, Pancho Villa was the caudillo, or ruler, of the Mexican district or state of Chihuahua. I believe I'm pronouncing it incorrectly. But yeah, the same name as the little dog, so creepy. So he was the caudillo of Chihuahua, which sounds like a totally made-up title, and he led forces against the government. Because he believed that the people was where the power should be vested. He believed in giving equal rights to the landless and the poor, which is a very noble cause. He was also kind of an asshole, apparently, and he liked to shoot people. A lot of people consider him a bandit because that's what he did. He robbed from the rich and gave to himself, and sometimes the poor. So he's sort of like a Robin Hood, if you will. Now, how does this tie into what I was saying earlier? Well, the answer is simple. How did not Diaz, I'm an idiot. Don't laugh at me. How did Pancho Villa fund his revolution? Hollywood. Hollywood paid Pancho Villa so they could follow him around and film his life. Pancho Villa played himself in 3 different movies. One of them directed by W.B. Griffith, who was famous for making the incredibly racist film Birth of a Nation. Also a very good film, just a very, 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 very racist one that did a lot of bad things. Good film, did bad things. Not like this. This is a good film. No, it's not. But it might do bad things in teaching women facts. We don't want that now, do we? I'm not a misogynist. It may seem like that, but I'm not. So, Pancho Villa used this money to fund his revolution. And it kept going. The more his revolution went on, the more Hollywood wanted to film it. And they made 3 really successful films out of it. And this led to Pancho Villa becoming sort of like this romantic outlaw. And have you seen that before? A romantic outlaw? It's one of the oldest literary devices, but it's also one common in Hollywood now. Think about various stars or celebrities who don't do what they're told to do. They're seen as rebels. Something dating back then. Also, this is strange because this is the first time Hollywood was making new stories. I mean, it had always been the practice of telling old stories in silent films, and in black and white, because there wasn't that much color, because it was black and white. But this is the first time they were really making their own stories. They were making the news because they were part of it. Something that a lot of newsmen do today. So what does this say about Pancho Villa? What does this say about this idea that we have of the heroic outlaw? It says a lot of things, but mainly it's a mixed message. Pancho Villa in those movies wasn't portrayed entirely as a hero and not entirely as a villain. He was portrayed more as he was, because they were shooting him as he was. And that's important. You can't let yourself fall to the stereotypes of romantic hero or renegade outcast. You have to see what is actually there and make something from it. Otherwise, you're going to have nothing. What eventually did happen to Pancho? He retired from politics, and then immediately took politics back up, and was part of the Mexican Civil War, where he was assassinated. His last words? Don't let it end like this. Tell them I said something. A final joke, or a plea for mercy. We may never know. Time moves in a strange way, and someday, maybe only the stories will be left of Pancho. Who knows what he was actually like? Not that many people. Pancho also is interesting to be one of the only people to invade the United States. He invaded a town in New Mexico, destroyed it, and rode back into Mexico. He invaded a town in New Mexico, and then rode back into Mexico. Just clarifying in case you didn't hear me. And then John J. Pershing, who was an army general, chased him back into Mexico, and then he fought with the Mexican army by mistake, which Pancho Villa was very amused at, because, hey, he's getting 2 people he don't like to fight each other. Worked out pretty well for him, except him being assassinated 5 years later. Pershing eventually left to go fight World War I, so good for him. And Pancho Villa was left in Mexico. Ironically, Pancho Villa and Pershing appeared in a film together, although they did not film it together. The film company refused to tell him where Pancho Villa was, and, well, he didn't want to ask. It was money for him, money for Villa, and more revolution. So what does this say, this idea of creating our own stories? Well, it's a good literary theme, but one perhaps not so true for history. Pancho Villa made his own story with the help of Hollywood. Literally, he made his own story twice, the movie and his life. So, what are you going to do? Are you going to go out and make your own story? That's what I suggest, but a lot of times it isn't that simple. A lot of times we are pushed by forces we don't understand, economic, political, and social. And we can only imagine what our lives could be if we could change things. But maybe if we rise up, if we rebel, we can. Thank you. Also, Megan's mom, I'm not gay, and I was very offended. So, yeah, I wasn't offended. Bye.